Elizabeth Brown.
And I'm Archibald White. And welcome to NBC. Hello, viewers. As the war to preserve the Union rages on, it seems that the majority of the people seem to be out of the loop, if you will, about the events leading up to the war.
Exactly. Right after the Mexican War, the issue of slavery aroused once again, and both the North and the South rallied to their cause. The South sought to expand slavery into the states, and us Northerners, who stand for equality and just cause, did not want to hear any of that.
Well, you see, the thing that most outraged the North at first was this preposterous Fugitive Slave Act. It impeded on the rights guaranteed by the Constitution. Although the South may technically argue that slaves aren't given any rights, who knows if their rights were attacked, we might possibly be next. Now let's go to our reporter on the field for an interview.
Thank you, Archibald. The Fugitive Slave Law, or Fugitive Slave Act, was passed in 1850 as a law in order for the South to try and get all their slaves who had escaped them from the North and bring them back to the South into captivity and the most terrible life of a slave, also known as the Bloodhound Law. Hello, sir. How did you react to when you heard about the passing of the Fugitive Slave Act?
Well, first of all, my name is LaMichael Brown, and I was a free man ever since I was born, and I'm a doctor. And since this law has been passed, it's been quite dangerous. It's been scary to walk around town because a lot of my friends have been captured. And even though they're free men, these people from the South, they can take us away at any point in time without any sort of evidence. So it's been quite scary so far.
How close have you yourself come to capture from the insidious slave hunters?
Oh, I've been almost captured quite a few times now, but luckily I've been able to escape. My friends weren't as lucky, and they've been caught before, so it's not the best of situations right now.
Have any of your family been hurt or harmed because of this act?
Yeah, well, my two brothers have been taken away so far, and like I said many times before, the situation right now is quite dangerous for any free black man in the North.
What do you think should be done?
I'm not sure what can be done, because right now, even if I was to be captured, there is no more free jury, and a judge actually gets paid more money if he sentenced me as a slave rather than a free man. So it's been quite corrupt. The judge, in essence, is being bribed to sentence me as a slave.
Any last thoughts?
Yeah, well, as long as this law is around, not only does it endanger the rights of the slaves, it actually hurts the rights of the Northerners, because if they're able to take away my constitutional protections, such as the right of a jury, then who knows, maybe the North might get their rights taken away too.
Thank you. Back to you, Archibald.
On December 2nd, 1859, a martyr for the abolitionist cause by the name of John Brown was hanged at the hands of the Southern slavocracy for his militant uprising at Harper's Ferry. Today, in the light of the recent Emancipation Proclamation, a group of John Brown's former supporters and fellow abolitionists gathered to commemorate his death at a newly constructed memorial at Lake Placid, New York. Field reporter Jimmy is reporting on the solemn event. Good morning, Jimmy.
Good morning, Archibald. I'm here at a small hamlet on the outskirts of Lake Placid, where local abolitionists have created a small memorial in remembrance of their inspiration and guide, John Brown. We have here with us several surviving members of the Brown family, including Owen Brown, son of John Brown and one of the few survivors of the Harper's Ferry raid. Tell us a little bit about your father.
Well, my father was born on May 19th, 1800 in Torrington, Connecticut. In 1837, he swore an adamant dedication to the abolitionist movement after the murder of Elijah P. Lovejoy, a well-known Presbyterian minister and abolitionist. In 1846, he moved to Springfield, Massachusetts, where he would spend much of his time listening to abolitionist lectures by Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass and learning about the Underground Railroad. In response to the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850, to which my father was very offended, he formed the League of Gileadites to aid runaway slaves in and around Springfield escape the cruelty of slavery, his first militant anti-slavery group. From then on, he would become a well-known abolitionist that was quick with a tongue and sword.
What about his involvement with Bleeding Kansas?
In 1855, my father left for Kansas to aid family there against the militant border ruffians that had attacked the free soil town of Lawrence and were trying to impose slavery on Kansas without popular consent. Determined to make Kansas a free state, he led a band of men in 1856 to Potawatomi Creek against a dangerous gathering of pro-slaveryites, instigating a civil war in Kansas between pro-slavery and anti-slavery factions that foreshadowed the Civil War. He would later in that year return to the East to raise funds for the abolitionist cause and recruit more willing men for the future campaigns in Kansas.
What was John Brown's purpose at Harper's Ferry?
Well, on October 16, 1859, my father led 18 men in an attack upon a federal armory in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, hoping to distribute local firearms to local slaves to rise up against their cruel masters. Unfortunately, the local slaves, largely oblivious to the capture of Harper's Ferry, did not revolt accordingly, and so a dispatch of U.S. Marines squashed the insurrection, and my father was unjustly imprisoned and executed for nobly fighting an institution as vile as slavery. Ironically, my father's execution and later martyrdom did affect a stronger fervor for the abolitionist cause, which would become one of the driving elements of Northern support for the Civil War, as the morality of slavery became a question that was no longer avoidable.
How do you think John Brown would react to the recent Emancipation Proclamation?
Honestly, I believe he would be unsatisfied with it. As a staunch abolitionist, my father would probably be shocked by Lincoln's political restraint in the Emancipation Proclamation when he declared the freedom of slaves only in the secession states and not in the border states much closer to the north. My father would also demand that the Emancipation Proclamation actually be repealed and revised.
What do you believe John Brown would think of the Civil War?
As a militant abolitionist, my father would probably support the Civil War as a necessity to end slavery despite its massive loss of life. He knew very well, perhaps, that more than any other abolitionist, that the question of slavery will turn bloody and cannot be reconciled with another compromise. The recent Emancipation Proclamation revealed the true intent of the war, to ensure the destruction of slavery as well as the preservation of the Union, which would finally put my father's soul to rest.
Well, thank you, Mr. Owen Brown, for your time, and we'll be letting you get back to the memorial celebration. Back to you, Archibald.
The Battle of Fort Sumter was another drastic move taken by the South. Take it away, Matt.
Here we are at Fort Sumter, where the South fired the first shots of the Civil War on April 12, 1861. The Southern states who seceded first attacked here, and luckily no one was injured or killed in the attack. Almost immediately after the South attacked the U.S., Lincoln was quick to call for the rally of troops, and 75,000 were quick to respond. 8 months ago, when the war first started, we thought it would be over very quickly and over in a year at most. But right now, we've noticed that we still have a lot longer to go. So stay strong, North, and remember that we will beat the pesky South and end the peculiar institution of slavery for good. Back to you, Archibald.
Finally, after much thought, our president issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which was the most important statement since the Declaration of Independence in the United States. I could explain this historic document, but I'm sure our viewers would rather hear it from the man who wrote it himself. So here's our reporter at the Oval Office with President Abraham Lincoln.
September 22nd, 1862, we can finally say justice has been served, and the greatest wrong in the history of the states has been righted. We have been waiting for decades for documents such as this, the Emancipation Proclamation, to be issued, and finally the time has come. The glorious creator, Mr. Abraham Lincoln, has freed the states that slaves who are within the territories which are still in rebellion against the Union will be freed. Sadly, the document doesn't make slavery illegal, but rather frees slaves as a war measure. Yet we are still proud to say, in total, over 3.1 million slaves will be freed from the immoral chains of the Cotton King, with 50,000 slaves already on their way to freedom. That's 3.1 million slaves closer to abolition. Issuing the proclamation under his right as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, Lincoln pointed to the Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution to prove that not only does he have the authority to create such a document, but also that he has the martial power to suspend civil law within any states which might prove to be rebellious. The proclamation has officially made abolition a central goal of the war, of course in addition to union as well. This has animated many anti-slavery groups and also weakened some forces in Europe which want to aid the Confederacy. This great act of justice has yet to be gone against in Congress, so now all that's left to do is pray and wait and see whether the next step will be taken. Let's have an interview with Mr. Abraham Lincoln to find out about this document and the future of this peculiar institution.
What are your views on the slavery issues that have been constantly arising?
We must save the Union first, in order to even begin addressing the slavery issue. Without that, we will not be able to eliminate slavery.
How would you save the Union without eliminating slavery? Slavery is the reason for why the Union is in such peril.
Well, eliminating slavery is necessary in saving the Union, but in order to eliminate slavery, we must save the Union. Now that is why I issued the Emancipation Proclamation.
What is the Emancipation Proclamation?
The Emancipation Proclamation is basically designed to help the Union win the Civil War. It is justified as a military necessity to preserve the Union.
Do you believe God will give you the power to end slavery for good?
No, I do not think I will have the power to end slavery, because slavery is evil, although I do believe that ending it would preserve the Union.
How is the Emancipation Proclamation going to affect the Constitution?
Well, slavery exists in the Constitution, therefore it is considered unconstitutional.
What were the results of the Emancipation Proclamation?
It did not free all the slaves in areas controlled by the Union, but it is the central act of my administration.
Well, there you have it, viewers. It's our pleasure keeping you updated on the events of this war. The blasted South continues to remain a pesky problem that we unfortunately have to deal with. And as always, long live the Union.
This is MPC News. We'll see you tomorrow.
Signing off, this is Archibald White.
And Elizabeth Brown. Bye.
I hopped off the plane at LAX with a dream, my cardigan. Welcome to the land of fame excess. Am I gonna fit